Hey everyone, and welcome back to my greenhouse. Today I'll be going through some of the most common types of variegation you'll find on Monstera. I've been keeping indoor plants for over 7 years now, and the Monstera Deliciosa was one of my very first plants that made me fall in love with the hobby and started my addiction. So if you've ever wondered why some Monstera have those stunning white, yellow or speckled patterns, you're in the right place. Stick around as I break down the different types of variegation you can find on Monstera. Before we jump into the different types, let's quickly talk about what variegation actually is. Variegation is when a plant has different colours on its leaves, usually due to a lack of chlorophyll in some areas. This can be caused by genetic mutations, climatic changes, or even viral infections. In Monsteras, variegation can be stable or unstable, meaning some plants can maintain their beautiful patterns, while others might revert back to green. Now let's break down the most popular types of Monstera variegation. First up, we have the stunning Monstera Deliciosa Albo. This is probably the most well-known type of variegation with large patches of white or marbled patterns across the leaves. The white variegation is called by climatic mutation, meaning it's unstable and can change over time. Because of this, Albo Monsteras require careful propagation to maintain their unique patterns. Plus, they grow a bit slower since the white parts lack chlorophyll. I currently have 2 in my collection, with this being the one with good variegation. This one currently has 4 leaves with a lot of white variegation throughout, as you can see. Because of this, it doesn't grow very quickly and I only get maybe 1 leaf a month, if that. It currently has some marks in this leaf because a caterpillar decided this one would be a tasty treat. And with these Monsteras, because the white parts lack chlorophyll, they don't photosynthesize as much, so they are prone to going brown very easily, as you can see in some of these spots. This is my other Monstera Albo, which is quite low variegated compared to this one. This is probably the best variegated leaf on this plant, and I recently chopped it back to propagate the top because it was mostly growing green leaves and it was getting quite long and leggy. And these are some of the cuttings from the top. I cut it back to try and promote this plant to grow more of the variegated leaves like this one. So the high variegated ones are still quite expensive here in Australia. I purchased this one for about $120 a year ago and was fortunate enough to win this one in a plant competition. So let me know if you own one and how much you paid for it and where you're from in the comments. Okay, next up we have the Thai Constellation Monstera. So unlike the Albo, this beauty has speckled or splattered variegation, almost like a starry sky. The Thai Constellation is actually a lab-created variety, making its variegation more stable compared to the Albo. It tends to grow more evenly and is often a favourite for collectors looking for a more predictable pattern. This was my first variegated Monstera I got, and I've had it for approximately 3 years now. These plants are normally grown more through tissue culture, and that's why their variegation is more stable. This leaf has a giant cut in it because it was more white variegated and it went brown, so I cut it off. And this one is its newest leaf. It got a bit of damage from a storm that we had recently here, but the white bits on this are more prone to going brown as well, just like the Albo. This one grows a little bit faster than the Albo, but it's definitely still a slow grower in my case anyway, growing about like 1 leaf a month, maybe 2. When I got this plant, these were quite expensive here in Australia at the time. I believe I paid about $150, but the prices have come down a lot from then, and they're about $50 to $60 at the moment for a smaller plant, which is great. It makes them more attainable for more people to buy. Okay, next is Monstera Aurea. Now, if you're a fan of golden hues, you'll love the Monstera Aurea. Instead of white patches, this one has striking yellow, greenish variegation. It can be marbled or in big patches, and it thrives in bright indirect light to keep those golden hues vibrant. This one is the recent addition to my variegated Monstera collection, and I purchased it from a plant show for one of the cheaper prices I've seen at $120, although I've seen them for sale around $300 mark, so it pays to shop around for a better deal. This plant has only opened 1 leaf since I've had it in my care, which is this one. I've noticed that the green/yellow variegated parts also brown quite easily, as you can see here. Next is sport variegation. Have you ever spotted a Monstera with random splashes of white or light green? That's a sport variegated Monstera. This type of variegation is completely random and often unstable, meaning it can revert back to green easily. It's a bit of a gamble, but if you're lucky, you can propagate and stabilize the variegation. I found a few before at big hardware retailers like Bunnings for cheap prices, although they are often one-off bits of variegation that typically revert on the next leaf. I originally bought this one as a sport variegated Monstera from Bunnings for about $20, but as you can see it's reverted and it's gone back to its green colour, and the leaf that did have the variegation on it has died off. Although this type of variegation is the cheapest, it's not stable, so it's not always guaranteed to keep the variegation. And just like regular Monsteras, these grow pretty quick. Last but not least, we have the Monstera Mint. This rare beauty has a soft muted green variegation that gives off a dreamy pastel-like effect. Unlike the bold contrast of the Albo or Thai Constellation, mint Monsteras have a more subtle and delicate variegation, making them highly sought after. I personally don't have one in my collection yet, but it's on my wish list and looking to find in the future to add to my collection. This variety of Monstera is quite expensive at the moment, so I'm waiting out to see if the prices come down a little bit before I purchase one. Let me know if you have one and what you paid for it and where you're from in the comments below. Now that we've covered the different types, here's some quick care tips I've learned from owning variegated varieties of Monstera. Since variegated Monsteras have less chlorophyll, they need a bit more TLC. Here's a few care tips to keep them stunning patterns vibrant. I have mine in bright indirect light. This helps maintain the variegation and prevents them reversing. Proper watering. Avoid overwatering to prevent root rot. I also use clear pots to help determine how much water the soil is holding. This one is still planted in the pot that I bought it in, but in the near future I do plan on repotting it into my arrow mix and into a clear pot like my Albo. Okay, I recently did a video on my arrow mix. If you want to check it out, I'll leave it in the description below. And regular pruning. This helps encourage new variegated growth. I typically do this if new leaves start to revert to try and encourage greater colours like I have on my low variegated Albo. At the moment I'm typically watering about once a week, but I do have my plants outside in my greenhouse. It's in sun for a few hours in the morning, but it's under 90% shade cloth. I use foliage focus at the moment to fertilise my plants, and I use that about every second watering. I haven't experienced pests with my Monstera Aurea yet, but with my Albo and my Thai Constellation, I noticed the most common pests that I get is thrips, and I use an eco oil or neem oil to get rid of them. So it's always important to check not just the top of the leaves, but the underside of the leaves as well, and new foliage, because they love to hide in the new growth. I've also done a video on how to identify and treat thrips on plants, so I'll leave the link for that in the description below. And there you have it, everything you need to know about Monstera variegation. Which type is your favourite? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new plant video. Thanks for watching and happy planting. Is there a variegation I missed in this list? Let me know in the comments below.